Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. I got an email from Anonymous. Subject line, Gallup poll about church attendance. In the email, there's a link for a Breitbart article. Hi, Jared. Guess which religious group isn't declining, unlike all others? By the way, we got our mission call to the area medical advisors in Brazil. Hope we can still read your post in Sao Paulo. Well, congratulations on that. That sounds really exciting. It's fun living in a foreign country, and your lives will be blessed for serving a mission. And yeah, this sounds interesting, this Breitbart article. We're going to look at that in just a second. I got the same link from Mike Murphy. Do you have a spreadsheet for this? No, I do not currently, and I probably won't. I don't foresee making a spreadsheet for church attendance. I don't know how I would really do that, but I'll just rely on the ones that are already out there. I'll rely on like these different studies and graphs and stuff like that. But thank you, Anonymous, and thank you, Mike, for sending me the link for this article. Poll, church attendance declines among most U.S. religious groups. Between 2021 and 2023, 30% of Americans said they attended religious services every week. 21%, or almost every week, 9%. So take those two groups together, you get 30%, which you could say is a third part of the United States, right? At the same time, only 11% reported attending once a month, and 56% said they seldom, 25%, or never, 31%, attended. Quote, 2 decades ago, an average of 42% of U.S. adults attended religious services every week or nearly every week. So 20 years ago, 42%. A decade ago, the figure fell to 38%, and it is currently at 30%. Gallup senior editor Jeffrey Jones wrote. Yeah, so that, I don't know, that seems to me pretty dramatic. So 20 years ago, 42, and then 10 years later, it drops 4%. But then the next 10 years, it drops 8%. So 4 and then 8. So that seems pretty steep to me. Okay, Jeffrey Jones continues, this decline is largely driven by the increase in the percentage of Americans with no religious affiliation. Now, let me just say something about that. That, I think, is actually a very good sign for the church. The reason why is because when you go back in time, you had people that were more locked in to their church, right? Whether it's because they genuinely believed in that church or whether it was because of social reasons, you know, they're born into the church or they stick with the church because their friends and their family attend that church. Well, it seems like that's starting to fall down. All that's starting to crumble. And so these people that were, you know, locked in are no longer locked in and now probably more available and more open-minded and willing to explore other options. So this very well could be a big opportunity for our church. We've talked recently about how the church seems to be expecting large growth in the coming years. And I think this could be part of it. I don't know if it explains all of it, but I think this is probably part of it. These old systems, these old religious beliefs, they're starting to decay, break down. They're not what they once were. Okay, so continuing. We're talking about Americans with no religious affiliation. 9% from the years 2000 to 2003 versus 21% from 2021 to 2023. So within 20 years, it went from 9% no religious affiliation to 21%. That's a pretty big leap. Almost all of whom do not attend services regularly, end quote. Among major religious groups in the United States, members of the Mormon Church reported being the most observant, with 67% saying they attended church weekly or nearly weekly. So that is really good. Now, before we continue, all this, it makes me think about this scripture in Doctrine and Covenants, section 88, starting in verse 92. And angels shall fly through the midst of heaven, crying with a loud voice, sounding the trump of God, saying, prepare ye, O inhabitants of the earth, for the judgment of our God is come. Behold, and lo, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. So, missionary work, right? Proclaiming the gospel. Verse 93, and immediately there shall appear a great sign in heaven, and all people shall see it together. When you click on the footnote for that, it takes you to scriptures talking about the sign of the Son of Man. Verse 94, and another angel shall sound his trump, saying, that great church, the mother of abominations, that made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, that persecuteth the saints of God, that shed their blood, she who sitteth upon many waters and upon the islands of the sea. Behold, she is the tares of the earth, she is bound in bundles, her bands are made strong, no man can loose them. Therefore she is ready to be burned. And he shall sound his trump both long and loud, and all nations shall hear it. And then, after that, after the great and abominable church is bound and all this stuff and ready to be burned, after that it says, and there shall be silence in heaven for the space of half an hour, and immediately after shall the curtain of heaven be unfolded, as a scroll is unfolded, after it is rolled up, and the face of the Lord shall be unveiled. And the saints that are upon the earth who are alive shall be quickened and be caught up to meet him. And they who have slept in their graves shall come forth for their graves shall be opened, and they shall also be caught up to meet him in the midst of the pillar of heaven. And then it goes through, all the different resurrections here. And then it says, and again, another angel shall sound his trump, which is the sixth angel, saying, she is fallen, who made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. She is fallen, is fallen. And again, another angel shall sound his trump, which is the seventh angel, saying, it is finished, it is finished. The Lamb of God hath overcome and trodden the winepress alone, even the winepress of the fierceness of the wrath of Almighty God. So you kind of have these two instances where the last thing that happens before it's done is the great and abominable church being bound and then being burned. It's like the last thing to happen before the next phase, right? And so I think this is like a process, right? It takes time. It doesn't all just happen in one day. And I think that's what we're seeing here when we look at studies like this. When we look at the downfall of all these different denominations that used to be really strong and have good attendance, now it's all starting to go down. Later on, it says, among various religious groups, Catholics have shown one of the largest drops in attendance between the year 2000 and 2023, 45% to 33%. The survey found slightly smaller decreases among Orthodox, 9 percentage points, and Hindus, 8 percentage points. The group with the largest drop in that time frame are those who identify with other religious groups. Quote, generally those not large enough to report separately as their own group, or those that are difficult to categorize based on respondents' answers, Jones wrote. This group saw a 24% decline in 2 decades. Now, I'd be really interested to know the specifics of that, who the others are. Would this include these other churches like the Community of Christ, the Church of Christ Temple Lot, groups like that? Because if that's the case, they're the ones that are seeing the largest drop, according to this. And so that could open up new possibilities as we're looking to get that land that they currently occupy in Independence, Missouri. Again, I have no idea when we're going to get that temple lot, but it's going to happen at some point. And this is probably what's going to lead to that point. The reason why we got the Kirtland Temple, we've already talked about this ad nauseum, but the reason why we got the Kirtland Temple is because the Community of Christ is hurting financially. And it's hurting financially. We've looked at their financial statements. It's because they're not getting as much tithing as they need from the younger generations. The younger generations in that church are not paying tithing. And I'm not going to pretend to understand all their religious beliefs, but just from what I know, And after having interviewed Linda L. Booth, who was the former president of the Council of the 12 Apostles of Community of Christ, it doesn't seem like they care about those things as much as we do. You know, like this is a commandment. You need to pay your tithing. I don't think that they really stress that. It's more of just like it's a good thing to do. Support the church rather than it's a commandment. That's what it seems like to me. So if that's the case, and we have things like inflation right now, and there's more and more worldliness and more places where you can spend your money, and other youth, outside of your church are becoming less and less religious. Why would you pay tithing? Why would you do it if you have other concerns? So, I don't know really anything about the Church of Christ temple lot. They're the ones that own the temple lot of what would have been the first temple of the 24 temple complex. But they are much, much, much smaller than the Community of Christ. The Community of Christ is like 250,000 in their membership. And the last I checked, let's just look here really quick. Church of Christ temple lot. This is the only place I know where to go to find their numbers. This is Wikipedia. It's saying that they have 7,310. That's according to Zion's Advocate. I have no idea what that is, but that's from back in 2013. So if they would be included in the other group, then they probably don't have 7,310 anymore. That would be my guess. I think their church, they take some of these doctrines more seriously. For example, building the temple. That's why they own the temple lot, and they still hold to those ideas, like the literal aspects of their theology, like the second coming is an actual thing. I don't think that the Church of Christ or the Community of Christ actually believes in the second coming. I can't remember if I discussed that with Linda. I'd have to go back and watch that interview. But anyway, it's just interesting to think about, isn't it? Okay. And then the other thing is Catholics. I've often wondered if there's ever going to be a time when the Catholic Church just completely collapses. On the one hand, that's kind of hard to see, it seems like they're still holding on. But on the other hand, could there be some event that takes place that could lead to the fall of the Catholic Church? I don't know, but whatever the case, they're kind of leading the way. Aside from this other group, they're leading the way in dropping attendance. And so, they're the largest Christian church. I can't remember what their numbers are. Let's see. Let's just do Wikipedia, Catholic Church. I'm pretty sure it's over 1 billion. Okay, right here, members, 1.378 billion as of 2021. Could you imagine if something happened with the Catholic Church, if it broke up even more or something big happened, and now you have no, I don't know what percent of that 1.3 billion are devout, probably a small percentage, but it would still be a sizable number of people. And so if something happened to the Catholic Church, you'd have people that are looking for, where can I find Christ? I still believe that he organized a church. I still believe it's important to go to church, but where do I go? There's no more Catholic Church, or it's not what it used to be. And our church is very similar to theirs when it comes to authority and structure and things like that. So anyway, that's something that I've had my eye on for a while. All right, let's continue. Jones projected that church attendance, quote, will likely continue to decline in the future, given younger Americans' weaker attachments to religion. Specifically, more 18 to 29-year-olds, 35%, say they have no religious preference. Then identify with any specific faith, such as Protestant / non-denominational Christian, 32%, or Catholic, 19%. Additionally, young adults, both those with and without a religious preference, are much less likely to attend religious services. See, now that's a problem. If you're if you're in a church, Catholic Church, Community of Christ, and you do have that preference, I am Catholic, I'm a member of the Community of Christ, it looks like they're still much less likely to attend religious services. And if you're much less likely to attend religious services, you probably aren't paying tithing. That probably goes along with not attending. I don't know. 22% attend regularly, 8 points below the national average, end quote. Other polls in recent years have found that Americans perceive a decrease in religious influence in the United States and place less value on their children sharing their religious views. Recently, the Pew Research Center found that 80% of U.S. adults say religion's role in American life is shrinking. Quote, a percentage that's as high as it's ever been. So, again, we can see this as a bad thing, and in a lot of ways it is. It's not good for the nation and the world, because this, there's probably similar numbers if you were to look at the entire world. But it's not a good thing for people to step away from religion and religious values, morality, things like that. That's not good. But on the flip side, like I said, I think it's opening up new opportunities. You have people that are no longer going to be hindered by these traditional churches. They're not going to stick with them and be locked in like they were before. Now they're freed up and potentially may come across the missionaries and join our church. Now, there were a couple other things I wanted to look at. I have this from Pew Research Center as I was just kind of researching this. And you have this. This is called Gender Gap in Religious Service Attendance Has Narrowed in U.S. And then you have this graph right here. U.S. gender gap in religious service attendance narrowed as smaller share of women attend at least once a week. So the gap obviously is between men and women, but you can see from this goes from 1972 to 2012. You can see that women essentially lead the way when it comes to attending church. And so when we think about President Nelson and him pointing to President Kimball's prophecy about the women today being the ones to bring in large numbers of people into the church, and he specifically talked about the good women of the world, how they'll be attracted into our church by the women of our church. As long as the women of our church show that they're separate and distinct from the women of the world in happy ways. I'm just paraphrasing what he said. So you can see how maybe this would be why, because generally speaking, women are more spiritual. They attend church more than men do. So as this trend continues, as religious attendance declines, they're probably going to become more and more important. Again, if something happens to their church, if for some reason, like for example, excuse me. So for example, with the United Methodist Church, it's undergoing a large schism right now. Other churches are kind of like going the way of the world, and it's like leaving people not knowing what to do. In the case of the United Methodist Church, you have a bunch of congregations that are breaking away and they're starting their own denomination. I think it's called the United or the Global Methodist Church. But if you're in that kind of situation and you don't agree with what's going on, and there's not really a clear path forward, then that may open you up to finding a new church. Even in the case of the United Methodist Church, because maybe some of those people, they're like, well, I don't want to go this way. I also don't want to go that way. I'm like stuck between a rock and a hard place. I think a lot of churches are having an issue right now. Many of them are going to the left, and they're starting to adopt worldly values, things that weren't traditionally supported before. And so people that do have morals, that do have those traditional beliefs, it's probably becoming less and less attractive to stick with their church that's going the way of the world. So This is interesting. And then the last thing I wanted to show, this is from Baptist News Global, and it has some additional numbers in graphs and stuff to look at. So this purple is religiously unaffiliated, and that's going that's going up and up and up and up and up. The dark blue is white evangelical Protestant. That is going down, 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 down. Oh, by the way, this is the 10-year decline of white Christians percent who identify as evangelical. That, they're kind of above everybody else, but they've been going down. Mainline non-evangelical Protestant is this blue color, this teal color. In fact, it looks like right now at the time that this was put together, they're actually a little bit above the evangelicals. And then you have Catholic in this grayish blue color, and they're at the bottom. They're all declining. Okay, figure 2, religion is the most important thing in life. 2013 and 2022 by religious affiliation. So unfortunately, our church is right here at, I guess, 27%. Yeah, percent who say religion is the most important thing in their lives, which is baffling to me. You have all these other groups above: Hispanic Protestant, other Christian, Black Protestant, white evangelical Protestant, and then we're higher than all Americans, but you have these other groups that are above us in saying religion is the most important thing in their lives. But what's interesting is that saying that that's the case doesn't necessarily translate to you actually taking action on that belief. Because when we look over here, this is percent who report attending religious services at least a few times a year. So you have white evangelical Protestants. So we're going to look at the 2022 numbers. So this green color: white evangelical Protestant, 76%, Latter-day Saint, 76%. And then all these other groups are less. So as of 2022, we were tied with white evangelical Protestants for percent who report attending religious services at least a few times a year. So again, you can say that is the most important thing in your life, but do you actually act on that? And then later on, attendance and participation in religious practices by religious affiliation, percent who do each at least a few times a year. So green is attend religious events other than worship services. So I guess that would be things like young men's, young women's, elders quorum activities, Relief Society activities, in our case, for our church. Blue is pray with others. Orange, talk to a religious or spiritual leader. And our church is way out ahead of everybody else. Here we are right here. The group that is probably the closest to us, it'd be like probably Black Protestant or white evangelical Protestant. They seem to be the closest, but we are way out ahead. So it seems like we have a lot more people that attend and participate in church. This is still a concerning number, those that say that religion is the most important thing in life, and we're only right here. But we have a lot more people that are engaged with the church and attending and participating, right? Again, back to this Breitbart article. It says the most observant members of the Mormon Church reported being the most observant with 67%. And that's probably going to attract some people. It's going to attract other people that also want to be observant. And their church continues to decline, and people become less and less observant. People are just like, well, whatever. Whereas before it was a lot more serious. Now it's just kind of like, whatever. So there's good and bad in this story, but I think that we should focus on the good and look at these new opportunities that are opening up to us in the church. And like I said, this might be maybe a big part of why the church seems to believe that we're going to grow a lot in the next few years. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.